hey man, let me show you how to do this, or come with me, we're gonna go do this. I never did that before. Well, come on, let's do it now. And it's easier, I guess, from a child's point of view. And we do it too. Somebody our age tells us something, we're more receptive to listening, depending on how open-minded we are. But if somebody younger comes along, a lot of us will look and say, well, how you know about that? Nah, you're not old enough to know about this. And not realizing that knowledge can come from anywhere. It can come from the alcoholic that you step past every day because you don't want to give him any change. He's not dumb.
Exactly.
And if you talk to him, you'd be surprised. You may learn a couple of things before you walk away.
Oh yeah, no. Some of the alcoholics, we have some around here that are street people. Some of them have some amazing stories, and sometimes some of the stories you have to take with a grain of salt, but some of it is probably based on truth. I mean, there are some that I know that have claimed, both here and in other places I've lived, to have been professors and to have been in the corporate world. And as you hear their stories and you listen to the stories, like I said, some of it they may have embellished some of it, but a lot of it is probably based on some semblance of truth. Maybe they didn't make the full cut. Maybe they weren't a full professor. They might have only been an adjunct and then hit a hard luck and changed the story of where they were running the department or done some other kind of creative thing. And people are not as naive as we try to put them off to be. Because people are actually a lot smarter than we give them credit for, and sometimes we can even fool ourselves on that. I know I was talking to a person online, and they were trying to basically what I thought was a fast one on me. They were trying to get me to give them something that I thought was a little bit too good to be true and things of that nature. And then they were trying to get me to send them something. So my infinite wisdom was like, I'm going to find a picture. I'm going to find a picture of what they want me to send them and send it to them as if it's what the real picture is. They busted me on that. They sat there and said, I know that picture. I've seen that picture. So like I said, people are not as dumb as we think they are. I tried to pull a fast one over, and they were like, no, I've seen that one before. I've seen that picture. So you can't pull that fast one on me. Even though I still think they might be trying to pull a fast, even though I still think they may be trying to pull a fast one on me, I tried to reverse it. But, sometimes those folks, because of that internet, they can do that same thing that you did and throw it right back in your face and be like, is this the picture you claiming is in your house? That don't look like your rug.
You're like, you gotta be more careful, man. You never know. Because in the age of social media, and you're able to get stuff from one place to the next in a very small amount of time, you can send something halfway around the world with one click. And which is how it is.
That's it. It's one way. You send that with one click, and you think you've gotten away with something, and they call you out on it, and you're like, nope, that was not the case. I did that. I'm too smart for you.
Right. So you gotta make sure it's on the level, because if it's not, you're gonna have a problem.
They'll call you out. They'll call you out on all kinds of things. So it's just amazing what people will do and how sometimes we just oftentimes fool ourselves.
And then get mad or emotional. Be like, for what? Get it together.
Exactly. You have to do that, and then you're sitting there going like, wait a minute. Why are people thinking that I've not got my act together? And then you have to go back and think to yourself, well, did I really have my act together in that particular case?
And then you find out you didn't. Or it's a step you missed when you should have done one thing, you did something else, and now you got to go back and you got to correct that, and then you may have to explain why you had to go back and correct it, or whatever it may be.
Exactly. Better than, what's that old saying about honesty, whether it's in business, whether it's in relationships, whether it's in whatever, it's usually the best policy. So, no matter what's going on, you might as well just come out with the true facts of what's going on, whether the person can handle it or not, that's on them. So like you said, if you are, you got people asking you for a loan and you're broke, then you just need to tell them, look, I can't do it. I've tried to pay my own bills and not try to come up with some creative made up story or whatever.
Right. Stop trying to please everybody. It's not going to work. It's not going to work, and you're going to tire yourself out.
Exactly.
And then you wonder why you wasted so much time, because people are only loyal to you for what they can get from you. Some people. And
That's
then,
very true.
Then you're sitting there like, well, this is effed up. Well, you kind of put yourself in that situation because it's easy to tell somebody, can I have? No. Can you
Nope.
give? Nope.
Nope.
And especially during this time of year, got a phone call earlier this week, and a guy called from a 215 number, a Philly number. So he was calling from the federal government. I've been randomly selected to receive $9,000 from the government. I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah. I said, all right, send me my check. He said, it doesn't work that way. I said, how does it work? He's like, well, we need you to go pick it up with a green dot card. I think he said green dot card. I know he said Western Union. And I was like, nah, if the government has a check for me, man, tell them to mail it to my house. Y'all already got the address. Since I was randomly selected, you should know who I am, And he's asking me my name, so I gave him a fake name because now I'm going to play with you.
Right.
And he's like, well, what did I say? I said my last name was Mustafa, right? So later on in the conversation, he was like, sir, you don't sound like a Mustafa. And it took all of me not to say, well, you do. But I didn't want to be offensive, right? So I was like, what does a Mustafa sound like? And he was like,
yeah, like I said,
you're trying to scam me, sir. And I was like, really? You call on a Saturday after 5 o'clock telling me you calling from the federal government in D.C. with a 215 area code number, and I'm supposed to trust you? Man, leave me alone.
But he said that you're trying to scam him. Well, it sounds like to me like he was trying to scam you. And that even comes back, like I said, I was hoping that...
Bruh, he said I was trying to scam him. I was like, how the hell does that work? You called me. I didn't call you. You know what I mean?
Okay, cool. Well, I think we finally got a phone call. I was looking for at least one of them to call me.
I actually got two at the door, so we're going to get them in 1 second. It's Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. We'll be right back.
The old Renaissance is the new Renaissance, standing on tradition while embracing the spirit of distinction. This is the Harlem Brewing Company. Uniquely crafted beer brewed to deliver a taste, a sound, and a feeling that can only be described one way, Harlem style. So come and take a trip on the A train with our Harlem Sugar Hill Golden Ale and our Harlem Renaissance Whip Beer, the neighborhood original.
All right. Thanks for calling Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. You are now on the line. Tell us who you are and where you are calling from.
Hi, I'm Willow Brigham. I'm calling from Cary, North Carolina.
All right,
hey, Willow,
welcome.
I'm glad that you were able to call Willow. I was hoping that one of the things I was hoping was I was going to have Robyn on, who's an educator with a book on where they're trying to get Muslims and African Americans to be involved in the literary world, but they have not called yet. But one of the reasons I wanted Willow to call is because Willow's been involved in education for a number of years, and she is like one of our premier storytellers, and she tells some great stories. I'm hoping that we'll get to hear at least one or two of them. I'm a big fan of her hat story, and she really must do the hat story today because I'm a big fan of that hat story.
Not tonight. Come on, Mark. Not tonight.
Come on, you got to do the hat story.
It needs so much more than just a telephone. It needs the ambiances. You need to see the hats. You need to feel the energy. It's a whole different animal. But tell me something else you want to hear.
Well, tell me, one of the things we've always talked about on this show is education. And I know that as a storyteller, you are also an educator. For a number of years, you had that show where you were doing it with the kids, and you actually encouraged the kids to actually get involved in even creating some of the stories. So that's one of the things I wanted to learn from you is how you got involved in being both a storyteller, but in my mind, an educator storyteller.
Well, education, because my background is in education, but physical education. I'm into health, nutrition, good, strong bodies, minds, and spirits. And so it carried over because when I had children, I started telling them stories. And I read some stories for the first time and thought, these stories literally suck. I don't want my kid to think he's going to marry somebody who doesn't have brain enough to use it. So I started fracturing the stories and making them what I wanted them to be, and I had my children help me tell the story. So hence it carries over if you help them to understand words, they turn them into sentences, and the sentences turn into paragraphs, and before you know it, you have a little mouth that runs, and then you have to figure out a way to keep them from talking or to slow them down. But the bottom line is giving them a chance or an opportunity to express themselves, because so many times we do not. And if you do not, then you're going to cause them to be stammered or slow to respond because you're not encouraging their communication skills. And we know the stronger our children's communication skills, the stronger vocabulary, the more likely they are to be able to read with understanding and comprehension and all the things you want them to have to enjoy reading, which leads to a lifetime of learning. And, you know, readers are leaders, and leaders are smart.
That is very true, and I sometimes think that we don't do enough good job of kind of what you just did, because sometimes those fairy tales that were very popular, a lot of times they weren't written for our kids, and a lot of times the stories and the messaging, I don't know, were necessarily written for our kids, because some of those stories were, you know, like you said, they were very stereotypical, very much out of the European culture. So I know that that's one of the things you've always done is, like you said, you made them into a different kind of story that fits more of our tradition.
I gave the children an opportunity to add their behavior, their lifestyle, their family, their eating habits, their dressing, their behaviors into the story. The story is more like something that they can identify with rather than something out of the blue. The fairy tale world is wonderful, provided you create fairy tales that your kids can understand. They should educate, motivate, entertain, and inspire. So give them an opportunity to create their own tale. If they don't like the way one has ended, then change it. Make your own tale.
Yeah, we got to do more.
Tell this story.
And what is one of your favorite stories? Your kids are all grown now, but what's one of your favorite stories that you remember as when you had the kids, and even when you were having the kids on the TV show, because you had a TV show for a while where you were having kids creating stories and everything. But what was one of your favorite stories that you remember telling them?
I told them the pizza tree. I told the story before I even wrote it down. And it was because my son, I'm always into good nutrition, right? And my one son says to me, well, how come we can't have a pizza tree? I can just pull the pizza off the tree and eat it. I said, that's a very good idea. Why don't we create us one? And the story begun. And the story is all about giving and sharing, and because what do you want your children to do? To be able to share, to expand, to be considerate, compassionate, use good manners, compassion to other people, to love others like they love themselves, the whole 9 yards in reference to good living. So the stories always had some element that would teach them something without beating them over the head. For instance, this little girl has a grandpapa who travels all over the world, and get this, he travels because when he was a young man, he joined the Navy, and he thought that was the best opportunity to see the world at somebody else's expense. So he encouraged his granddaughter to see the world. In the meantime, he travels all over, and he sends her a gift from every place he travels to. So, number one, he has goals. He has aspirations. He gives her something to look forward to. So he sends her one gift that she's not familiar with, and it just happens to be a seed that came from the belly of a fish. And in this particular country, not naming the country, it can be any country you want it to be, in this particular country, when you find a seed that comes out of the belly of the fish, it's supposed to have magical powers. Da, 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 da. So he encourages her to plant this seed and sees what happens. And, of course, she goes outside with her mom and she plants this seed in the back of her garden. What have I just told the kids? They need to have a garden. They need to plant seeds. They need to see things grow. And you say all of that without saying just that. So she's out in the garden pulling peaches when she smells something most unusual. And this seed has sprouted. And she calls her mom, who just happens to be painting the wall of the kitchen, and says, this seed has sprouted and it smells like cheese. And Mama says, darling, seeds don't smell like cheese. Well, Mama, this one does. You need to come check it out. And so Mama's coming to check it out, except for the fact the phone rings, and you know what happens. The phone rings, she forgot about the seed, the kid went to play, she forgot about the seed, and things go on. A day or two later, she's out there pulling tomatoes. Why? Because I want them to consider eating fresh vegetables out of the garden. So I name stuff I want them to eat. This time she smells the plant, and this time it smells like bread. Mama's laughing. She says, now, is that brown bread or white bread? Because brown bread's got fiber in it. She says, I don't know, Mom, but it smells like bread.